You pile a ton of wood up, and you start lighting it. And it's kind of sort of burning, kind of sort of not, but if you take another stick and you kind of lift up all that, it takes off. You're getting more oxygen in there, right? Same type of thing is what you're trying to create in your stove. Because you want that chaos, you want that volatility, you want all those gases mixing, you want all that happening at once. Fire likes chaos.
That was George Wells, owner and operator of Four Dog Stoves, chatting with Joe Fredericks and I while looking at the numerous types of wood stoves that can be used in winter camping.
We met George at what's known as the Winter Camping Symposium, or as we like to call it, the Winter Camping Festival.
It's very festive. More festive than symposionic, I would say. It's the 25th year of this festival, symposium, just wrapped up. Amazing experience. Deep sense of camaraderie between people who love the outdoors and love being able to experience the outdoors in all seasons.
So this took place in late October down by Moose Lake, which is south of Duluth, maybe half hour, 40 minutes, something like that. A beautiful place on Sturgeon Lake by Camp Miller, the YMCA camp. What I really liked about pulling into Camp Miller and the festival was the pine tree, big white and red pine, and some oak trees, though. It was like we were in a different landscape, but it felt so similar in many ways to where we go winter camping, which is typically in the Boundary Waters.
Part of the experience of pulling in is that you transition into this world of tents, hot tents that are set up seemingly everywhere. Wood smoke drifting out of the smokestacks, many of them in this main kind of, sports field that the camp has, along with some of the different vendors who are there. But go a little further, and then they continue being strewn about the woods, sprinkled in between cabins and tucked into nooks and near fire pits, and it really is like stepping into another world.
Yeah, it was our first year at the Winter Camping Symposium. We've been wanting to go for years and years, and some of the event organizers have been inviting, even encouraging us to attend. I'm so glad that we were able to this year and made the choice to go down and see it for ourselves. And we're going to take you with us to the symposium in this episode today. We're going to go inside the symposium, so to say. Before we do that, I want to let you know that one of our sponsors, Loon's Nest Coffee up the Gunflint Trail, they're closed for the season. Bob and everybody there say thanks for all the support. They'll be back and running in 25, but you can still order products from their website at loonsnest.coffee. And thanks to Bob and the team for supporting us and for the much-needed coffee that we picked up on occasion.
Support for this episode comes from Voyageur Canoe Outfitters, located at the end of the Gunflint Trail in Grand Marais. Voyageur outfits your Boundary Waters trip with as much or as little gear as needed. From fully furnished cabins near the wilderness line to complete outfitting canoe trips, Voyageur has you covered. Head to VoyageurOutfitters.com to book your vacation.
The discount sale that's happening, a major sale at Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply, because they're transitioning to new ownership this winter. We're going to be following that very closely and keeping you updated on the podcast and our website. But right now is the time to get down to Stone Harbor to get in on the discount that they have going from everything in the store, 20%, 40% off in some cases, and you need to get down because people have been hearing about that sale and getting down, but there's still a lot of merchandise to be moved at this huge sale at Stone Harbor Wilderness Supply right here in Grand Marais.
We drove in to Camp Miller not long before the sun set. was a flurry of energy trying to figure out the lay of the land, where we were going to put up our hot tent. We found our spot, got her set up, got a fire rolling immediately so that it'd be toasty later in the night. And by the time we were ready, the sun had set. The color had nearly completely drained from the sky, and we had to bolt to make it to that evening's speaker, Pam Wright. This is M. Bexley, sitting next to Joe Fredericks at the Winter Camping Symposium. We're listening to Pam Wright do her speaking event on guiding and winter camping. She's doing great. Check it out.
Or a few days are like in a wilderness guided trip into the Boundary Waters.
Pam's presentation focused on the beauty of wilderness travel, some through the eyes of a guide, and some as a person who loves to go winter camping in the Boundary Waters region. Pam says the symposium is a perfect place to gather and celebrate the onset of winter.
One thing I love about the Winter Camping Symposium is that it is for everybody. There's kids running around. There are people ages, 9 to 90 years old. And there is a winter camping adventure for everybody. Whether you're going in 2 miles, setting up a tent at a state park, or you're going a 60-mile trip into a remote area like Quetico, there is something for everybody. And so that's what I love. Even though it is winter camping, that can, incite fear into people, there is a way to do it that works for you where you are at. If you come, there are all kinds of tents set up, whether it's a 3-season tent, a traditional hot tent, a hammock. Like I said, there's kids running around. You see people of all sorts and all ages. And so the community is very welcoming. We started coming here to the Winter Camping Symposium 20 years ago, and we brought our 3 kids, and everybody was like, cool, come on over here, we'll show you how to do stuff. It was great.
So there's this idea that it's great, that winter camping is great, the symposium is great, and they are. It's also, though, real that things happen to people in connection to others and in the wilderness that aren't all fluff or easygoing in nature. One of the presenters at the symposium this year, Pete, makes saw blades and other camping supplies out of titanium and other lightweight material. Pete also loves to go winter camping in the Boundary Waters. He lives up on the Iron Range, just west of Ely. During his presentation Saturday morning about solo winter camping, Pete told a story about falling through the ice. It was a different approach than what Pam took with her stunning photos and descriptions of sunsets and fresh snow during her keynote presentation Friday night. Pete's story that he shared Saturday morning, quite frankly, was terrifying.
I'm Pete Brodigam. I'm the owner of Brodigam Expedition Works. I'm also a board member on the Winter Camping Symposium. I'm an avid winter trekker. I presented a class called Solo Winter Trekking 101. The main focus behind that class was a lot of lessons learned by a trip that I was on, a solo winter trekking trip in the Boundary Waters a few years ago, where I went through the ice, and I'm able to tell my story and lessons learned from it. During that course, I shared with how I changed my gear system, the way I look at ice, the way I plan my trip ahead of time, the way I do everything from start to finish, all changed when I went through that ice. It was a middle of February trip. I don't remember the exact day, but it was the 4th day of my trip. It rained 2 inches of rain the day before. So unseasonably warm day, rain 2 inches of rain. We had great ice conditions the day before, a lot of travel time, and then this rain came. Rain made me really nervous, but I didn't think much of it because the next day the cold front came in and it got really cold. So I happened to be doing a loop trip, and I was went in on Moose, and I was coming back through Basswood. So I happened to be on Basswood that day. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. The wind was out of the west, about 35 miles an hour. You couldn't see a whole lot. The visibility was really low. It was snowing, and it was very cold, making that snow very difficult to walk in because of all that rain the day before. And then there happened to be a lot of slush on the ice too, so there's a lot of pressure. Getting tired, getting wind whipped off of Basswood because I was on the wrong side of Basswood that day. I was getting in towards a bay called Wind Bay. And in Wind Bay, there was a beaver lodge that I did not see. What happened was I was about 50 feet from shore, and what seemed to be shore, right? We had about 2.5 to almost 3 feet of snow, so it was very deep snow as well, up into the wind-packed sections of the lake. Towards that cove, I saw a dip in the snow, and I didn't think much of it because of being solo. I had no one to stop me. I was just wanting to get to shelter. I fell through the ice up to my armpits. I did not go full under the ice immersion, but I went up to my armpits in through the ice. It almost felt in slow motion, where it almost was slow enough that I could have almost stepped again and try to save myself, like from falling through. But it felt like the bottom dropped out of me, and I had nothing to kind of push off of because my other foot went through as well. It was in slow motion, but yet it was fast at the same time. Nothing I could do. When I finally stopped with my arms, first I could not believe this is real. Like, I can't believe this is happening. What am I going to do? And then I reverted back to some of my training that I've had with getting out of ice and getting dry. So that's where that muscle memory helped me, that I've had with a couple classes at the symposium a few years back, that I got out of the ice hole, the broken hole. What I found was that snowshoes went into the ice really well, but they're very difficult to come back out with your foot still on them. So I was able to get one shoe off, and the other one was still on, and I kind of struggled and got out. And I rolled into the snow to dry off as best I could, took off my outer layers, and I grabbed my sleeping bag as fast as possible, and I kind of jumped into it. It was a shivering fit. It was very cold, very windy. I had no idea if I was going to live through this. And I was almost ready, and this is the wild part, I think, I think this would have qualified. I should have hit my PLB at that time, but I didn't. I had a personal locator beacon, not an inReach at the time. I could have hit that and had search and rescue come help me out, but I didn't for some reason. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe it's pride. I don't know what it. So I shivered myself in my bag for about 2 hours, and then once I got warm enough, then I was able to get out of that bag quickly. And then find, because I was looking around in my bag or outside my bag, but while I was in it, to looking around for any sort of viable wood that was close by. I was able to do that. I was able to get a fire going. I pitched camp about maybe 100 feet from where I went in. So I was not interested in traveling. That's where I'm camping. Come to find out, it was a beaver run. I was able to get dry-ish enough with my outer clothes were frozen solid. I was able to get my other puffy down. I threw that on with no shirt on, just to get enough clothing to get things set up. And then that night was such a struggle to try to stay warm. It felt like I was cold chilled to the bone type feeling. I know that's a popular description, but I was deep chilled. I was like a couple stages into hypothermia here, where I almost couldn't stop shivering. I was just throwing wood in my wood stove as much as possible with the door open, making it as hot as possible, and trying to get warm liquids. I was melting snow. I was just grabbing piles of snow and putting them in my cup and just drinking it as fast as it was getting hot. I wasn't worrying about boiling water at the time, just getting hot liquids fast. I was trying every trick in the book that I thought that I knew at that time, to get warm liquids, get warmed up faster, trying to dry out my clothes. And the thing is it took insanely long time. Like everything took way longer than I thought. It took much longer to get a fire going. It took much longer for me to dry out. It took much longer for me to warm up out of my bag. It was dark by the time I was because I went in around 10 o'clock ish. It was dark by the time I was able to really get camp set up. I mean, it just took forever. It took an entire day of getting myself gathered together, and then just to walk across one lake into Moose and then back home. So I was still, over a day away from home. First, it was muscle memory, survival mode. Just do what I've been doing forever. I just always known that you strip off your outer clothes, you get in your bag's your lifeline. And then I was like, oh, my wife is going to kill me. I was like, because I give her a float plan and she didn't know my exact route or when it was going to be. And this is one of those lessons learned. I'm like, no one would have found me for a long time. So it's like, oh, I'm going to be in big trouble. It's like, I can't leave her behind. And then once I started to get warmer, then I'm thinking, okay, these are all the little things that I need to do. I'm not even going to boil water because that's my normal MO. I always boil water because I think it tastes better. I was just grabbing fistful of snow. I didn't care if it was stepped on or not. I was just grabbing the nearest thing and just getting it in me to try to warm the inside. Initially, I didn't think about drinking warm water. I was just thinking about just fire. But I was like, oh, I should get something in me too, Didn't think about food at all either. But it was just warm liquids and trying not to shiver myself to sleep. That was rough. Getting clothes dry was rough too, full immersion drying out. I never felt warm. I always felt warm enough to keep going. I was still shivering. It's that deep shiver you just can't shake. I've been there a couple times, winter camping with a subpar insulated bag, just not rated for that temperature. You just get that deep chill. And every time I did, I woke up, did push-ups in my bag, did things like that. I really fought for it for the first probably 2-3 in the morning. And then it felt better because I was getting a lot of heat in that bag. But I ate about as much as I could actually handle. I ate all my snacks for an entire day. I was just eating the high calorie, high intake stuff as fast as possible to get that. But that was after the fact. It was after I got my bearings, and it was after that initial deal. I was not thinking of any of that during the time. And it just took forever. Everything just took so long. The next morning, I wasn't on trail until about noon. I was super slow to get up and going. The last thing I really wanted to do was get outside of my sleeping bag. But I knew I had enough wood. I just kind of took a lazy morning, really kind of calmed down a bit because I was still kind of heightened stress. Just trying to get that kind of calmed down, kind of go over my gear a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, I've got snowshoes somewhere around here. I ditched them. I didn't even know where they were. I was post-holing to get wood. I mean, it was borderline chaos, So I gathered my gear. I got things kind of situated because everything was kind of spread out, all chaotic. I had a couple extra cups of, hot drinks in the morning. I had a nice big breakfast, and then I just took it real easy. The scariest part after that trip was stepping back on the ice right after you just went through. And I didn't have it in me to go through it again. I was like, I can't do it. So a little bit of that was, all right, now I was serious. I was instantly serious about checking ice, almost every few. And then I got out to the mill lake. I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit better, But struggled with the slush with all that rain. It was still a fight to get to the entry point. Still managed to do so. But it was rather traumatizing that day. I just did not, I don't know if it's the right words or not, but I just did not feel like being on the ice anymore.
So that's the reality of winter camping. Pam's photos make complete sense. Those pictures really happened. It was a beautiful sunset. Incredible things occur when you're winter camping sometimes. And terrifying things can also happen. It's this and that. As we said earlier in the episode, this was the 25th anniversary of the Winter Camping Symposium. It was started by two guys, Don and Dwayne, who are more or less legends when it comes to winter camping, and not just in the Boundary Waters, but across North America. Don Cavalis is the founder of Four Dogs Stoves, and Dwayne Lodig is the founder of Snow Trekker Tents. They've each passed their businesses on, at least on paper, and have retired to an extent, though they're still active in the industry of outdoor gear and recreation. They're both icons, too, it's safe to say. The story of Don and Dwayne, in addition to them starting the camping symposium 25 years ago, has an element of Pam's presentation about winter camping. There's some absolutely magical moments to be shared, and Don and Dwayne can tell those stories well. For example, here's Don talking about the symposium lasting for 25 years.
So I guess I didn't look at how long it could last. I was just looking at, I think it was something necessary for the community to help people be successful to get outside. And one of the most rewarding things I've found in my career is when I see families and I see people come back and say how this allowed them to go on a trip. Dwayne's boys now that are running the business, well, I know them when they were this high. You know what I mean? And see, now their grandkids are even taller than that, but I see them continuing that legacy and, getting people out and, showing them how to do it and be successful. Let's face it, the winter is the most harsh time to be out in the woods there is. And so I'm a lucky man.
However, something about Don and Dwayne's affiliation to the symposium, in addition to being the founders, is that they've had a feud of sorts for many years. Ryan Fox from the Winter Camping Festival crew told us a bit of the backstory on that.
It was kind of a known thing, that they were friends for a really long time, and there was a small incident that happened, and,
What was the incident? It's just like they...
From my perspective, the incident was that that Dwayne would wanted to carry Don's stoves on Snow Trekker's website and kind of help retail that, and they just couldn't really settle on how that was going to work out.
Oh, I heard about that.
And you've got two alpha style personalities there, and so that was the clash. Well, then you're like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm not going to talk to you, and that lasts 20 years because they're so stubborn. You know what I mean? They're just stubborn, and so it took Don's health not great, Dwayne getting older, thinking about passing the company on. The ceremony, kind of the stone and that stuff, kind of was, I think, just like the firing pin to that was already ready, and that just kind of helped bridge the gap, because we stood up there and personally said, like, this is what these men have done for this community. This is what they've done. You know what I mean? And you could see them getting choked up in the crowd, and I made them come. They didn't want to, but made them walk up to the front, and take and they were both standing up there with these words, and they kind of looked at each other, and it was probably like, what are we doing? Why? That's nothing's. But that's usually the case, right, in personal relationships.
Always. That is always the case.
You always look back and go, well, that was the dumbest thing ever. Like, what are we doing? And they were friends, but they weren't like...
There's redemption in this story. There's understanding and compassion. Whatever differences Don and Dwayne had professionally, they worked it out over the years, Dwayne said.
Well, when we started this, I was, 25 years. I'm 73 years old now, so I'm getting to be an old timer. And Don's been back for a lot of years, so it's a good thing. Yeah. It's bad to let ridiculous things come between friends, but it happens. Wasn't anything big, but it just, got on somebody's wrong side, and that's it. So, and it wasn't anything intentional, so it was minor. It happened.
The coming together of Don and Dwayne allows them to talk about their gear without the backdrop of personal differences. Don was able to tell us, for example, about how his stoves have actually saved people's lives in the backcountry.
One fellow comes, he says, I got to talk to you. And I'm kind of like, yeah. He says, well, you saved my life. And I'm kind of, what do you mean? He says, that stove you sold me? I said, yeah. Well, me and my boy had, he says, me and my boy went up to a hunting trip in Alaska where it was a fly-in trip, and they dropped them off. You can come back in a week, but then bad weather come in. So they were stuck there 2 more weeks before the plane could get in. And he said that that so saved their life because, they had a good heat source, get stuff dried out. But he says the best thing was they were kind of distant. But at the end of that 2 weeks, they had a better relationship, And to be part of that, just that little, ingredient to help that happen, I find that makes, then you did something right.
This was the first year for the Paddle and Portage team to attend the Winter Camping Symposium. Bear Paulson, who happens to be one of the new majority owners of Paddle and Portage, was the keynote speaker for the event Saturday night, that being the final night of the festival for this year. Bear talked about his travels and adventures with Dan Cook, another icon in the paddle sports industry, who passed away earlier this year. Bear's presentation reflected what the symposium is all about. The great times we can have together in the woods and on the water, even when that water is frozen. And Bear was able to also talk about Dan's passing in the same presentation. It was the whole picture. We could see everything. We heard truth.
It's funny, Dan requested that there be nothing for that memorial. He wanted zilch. He wanted no gathering, no nothing. And he was one that would frequently say, when we were out there, it's like, if I start doing a crappie flop, just push me in the lake, report it when you get back. And it was like, come on, Dan. And I talked with a mutual friend of ours right after he'd passed. We were in Yukon, so maybe 3 weeks after he'd passed or whatever it was. And Kevin was like, so you think the Nokomis thing, we should just push him out in the canoe and sink it? And I'm like, that's what he wanted. He just wouldn't have wanted to watch have anybody watching it.
Winter camping in all of its glory, greatness, pain, tragedy. It's all upon us now. We're going to continue to bring you winter camping content from our adventures and our contributors' adventures throughout this winter. Look forward to dropping into the cold and the darkness.
Since we left the symposium, we've had a little bit of snow, and I mean a little bit, like a trace, but we've had a fair amount of rain and some gray November-like days along the Lake Superior coast and even over in the Ely area, just rain and gray and temperatures like in the upper 30s, and it's that time of year. And I gotta tell you, it's a little hard because after the symposium I was so excited to be in the hot tent again and get into winter mode. So just gonna have to wait a little bit longer, but it's coming. And another big takeaway that I left the symposium with was that I'm already looking forward to next year's event, the 26th symposium.
I've caught wind that the speaker for next year's are actually 2 members of our paddling community, 2 people that we know and love, Joe Fredericks and Baxley.
We love them most of the time.
I know that may even be a stretch, isn't it?
And I'm looking in the mirror when I say that.
I know. Yes. Same. I actually just can't say more praise and gratitude for the folks who put on the Winter Camping Symposium / Festival. And all those guys do an amazing job. Thank you for doing what you do. It is a labor of love and sacrifice. And we look forward to seeing all of you, our listeners, there next year. Come check it out. And thank you so much for listening.
So shout out to Ryan, Chad, Matt, Pete, Kevin, all the people that make that event happen. And a huge shout out to Don and Dwayne for getting this event started 25 years ago and for sharing some of their story, their business story, and their personal stories with us as well. So what a time. Check out the symposium next year if you can. And until then, we'll be preparing for winter on the edge of the Boundary Waters.
Like to sing when I paddle canoe, feeling not thinking if the strokes are true. We're gonna get through to the other side. Out in the night, the waves beat the shore. You can hear them pounding, you can hear them roar. Oh, roll me, rock me in my dreams. You can roll me, rock me in my dreams. So I like to sing, I love to dance. I play the fool if I got the chance. All around the campfire light, all around campfire light, all round, all round, all round the campfire light.